Great. Well, good evening, everybody. It is great to be with you this evening. Welcome to the Live Lounge. My name is Nick.
And I'm Lauren.
Great to see you this evening. We are both from the Schools and Colleges team here at the University of Lincoln. And this evening's Live Lounge is all about personal statements, Lauren. So you're in good hands this evening. Now, both of us work in the Schools and Colleges team here. So Lauren, do you want to just tell people a bit about our role and what we do?
Yes, so we work with schools and colleges all around the country, working with personal statements, giving advice and support. So we have seen a fair few, and hopefully today we'll be able to give you some tips, so it should be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we travel up and down the country, probably seen some of you guys before. Yeah, if you're here and you've seen our faces around the country before, then do say hello. We have comments available, so please get in touch with us. We've got the chats in front of us, so from YouTube and from Instagram Live. So please put any questions, any comments in there, and we'll be going through them at different points of the evening as well. But you're with us for the next half an hour or so, and we hope that tonight's going to be really, really useful for you. If you are a year 13, preparing your statement ready for that UCAS deadline, or even if you're getting ahead of yourselves in year 12. Yeah. So we'll get stuck straight into it, but I can see a couple of people commenting already. I can see Alistair. Hello, Alistair. Good evening to you. So Lauren, we're going to kind of go through a few questions. Yeah. We'll maybe chuck a little game in there. Whenever we do presentations, we always like to chuck a bit of a game in there. So we might just do that. We'll basically just try and help anybody of you that is trying to build your statement. It's a really important part of the application process. So we need to make sure we get it right. And we put as much content in there that's going to be really rich and valuable to your application. So Lauren, if we start off, I can see a couple of comments already coming in. So we're going to start off by just kind of thinking about how do we even start it. So your statement, you're applying to a few different unis. Where do we start?
Yeah, so starting off can be very daunting, of course. Just remember, it's not just you that has to do the personal statement, it's everyone who's going to university. So it can be quite stressful, but definitely making a few bullet points for a few of the sections. We will go through into more detail into, we usually say around about 5 sections, 5 paragraphs to help you split that up. A few bullet points for each one, starting with the introduction. It is an essay structure, so we always try and recommend a conclusion as well and an introduction at the start. But yeah, a few bullet points at the start. The introduction mainly focuses on passion for the subject. So why is it out of all those different courses that you do in that? Yeah. I think on UCAS alone, there's around about 16,000 courses just for psychology. So why is it you wanting to do that course? Having a think about that.
Yeah, great. And, so when we're starting to think about building our statement, I think starting with just some bullet points, some of the key things you want to include. So, if we talk about that structure that we recommend when we go and do these presentations in schools, we start with our introduction. We then talk about stuff in our academic journey. So that's the second one, isn't it? So all about stuff you've learned in your subjects at school or college. Then we think about extra work and extra understanding. So we basically want you to talk about all of the things that you do outside of school and college that are going to contribute well to your academic side of your subject. And then we talk about work experience. So any relevant work experience that you may have would be really great. And then the conclusion. So in terms of making a few bullet points for that, Lauren, what would we maybe put in an introduction? So you mentioned it briefly, but kind of, if you think back to your time at uni, what kind of stuff did you put in yours?
So definitely introduction, you need to state what course it is that you're applying for. What is that called? What is the subject area? You don't need to name any specific institutions, if I can get my words out there. So try and avoid that because we don't want that in any of the personal statements. So introduction is definitely naming what course it is you're doing and why. What is the personal trigger for that? So is there any things when you were growing up that you maybe have really passionate for that subject or that specific area that you can talk about in that one paragraph to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want to see you're motivated to study it, don't we?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's the primary thing, really. I can see a comment here from Emma. So, what should the split be between academic study and social life? So, we don't want students who are just going to come to us and say, you know what, I just want to do all of the academic stuff, none of the social stuff. What would you say to that, Laura?
Yeah, so it does need to be a big balance, I would say. Definitely the academic journey, which is your paragraph 2, can focus on your academic journey. What is it you're studying, your qualifications, your A-levels, whether it's BTECs, T-levels, whatever it is that you may be studying. But then you do need to talk about your work experience or your job. Maybe you've got a job that talks about you can talk about your transferable skills. So what is it? Is it teamwork? Is it motivational skills? Is it working presentation skills? So that's really important, whether you've got that in football, it could be refereeing, anything that you've done. So it's not just about your work experience, so it's about those transferable skills that you talk about as well. So getting that balance right is definitely quite hard, but try and thinking about both aspects as well in your personal statement for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to add into that, you mentioned refereeing. That was something that I put in my personal statement as my kind of work experience. Now, that formed the basis of my interview. So I studied creative advertising here a few years ago, but as part of that interview process, my statement was basically printed out next to one of the lecturers, and they used that as the basis of it. So it is important, isn't it, to get this right? Because if, for example, you get invited for an interview by ourselves or whoever, then they're going to look through your statement and they're going to maybe make a few comparisons and ask you a few questions about it. So make sure you put that in there. You mentioned refereeing. I'll maybe give an example about mine. So when I wrote mine, I had a few years experience as a football referee, which in the sort of bigger picture doesn't really relate to advertising that well. However, I found a real great list of transferable skills. So communication, decision making, problem solving, all that were relevant for an advertising degree and a career in that. So basically what we want to try and draw out is if your work experience is relevant or not. It's all about the skills that you're going to use on your course or the career that you're going to go into. So that's kind of what we want to go into, really, isn't it? So let's have another quick look at this chat then. So we've got another comment here, and we're basically going to look about structure. So we talk about structure, and this question says, how important are personal statements on your UCAS application?
Yeah, so just like Nick talks about there, obviously personal statements couldn't help you form the basis of an interview. So definitely, your application is going to go to the university. It could be one of 5 universities that get that application. Straight through, you're just going to be a name and your personal statement. So it is really important to get those points across, like Nick talked about, communication skills, what are the A-levels, obviously meeting those entry requirements as well is important, but it's the best of both worlds. So what are the qualifications that you've got, but also the social aspects that you can talk about. In each paragraph, though, it's really important to talk about the ABC method. This is something that, as a university, we try and talk about when we're going into schools and colleges to help students. With those, when you've first got those bullet points down, what is it that can add more substance to those paragraphs? So remember the ABC, the activity, what is it you're going to be talking about, whether it's communication skills, things like that, or whether you've done refereeing or whether you've got a job, what is it that you're actually doing? Then the benefit, so going on to the skills and attributes that you've got from that. So is it motivation? Is it communication skills? Is it maybe a subject specific skill? What is that? And then the C, which is the course, linking that back to the course or the career. So that'll be, your main paragraph following that ABC structure will definitely give it a bit more oomph into that paragraph and more meaningful.
Yeah, and I think, as we do this presentation and workshop and work with students all around the country, what I see students doing, and as I read through their statements, they kind of maybe make a statement about something, maybe a skill that they've got, and then don't back it up with an example. Definitely. But that ABC method just keeps it really simple, doesn't it? So that when you name something, just make sure that you give a good example. And then even better, if you can then make that relevant to what you're going to go into. It's all about kind of tying it back into your understanding of what you're going to go into at university and then afterwards as well. So yeah, that structure will also just help your paragraphs flow nicely, I think, as well. So, sometimes it's hard to figure out what you should write and how you should say it. But if you simply name something that you've done, an activity, the benefit of it, and then how that's going to be useful to you at uni, that should just keep it nice and simple, really. And that's what we want, isn't it? Simple.
Yeah, and also thinking about those character count that you've only got 4,000 characters. So hopefully keeping that those paragraphs nice and structured would help. And then when you've got the conclusion at the end, you can sum it off, and we'll talk about more in the conclusion as well. But you need to go back to the course, back to your career. What is it that you're aiming for? How will that university degree help you? And following all that will hopefully help.
Absolutely, yeah. So just going to go to the chat for a minute, if that's all right. So we've got Loki here, says, if I don't necessarily have much work experience outside of college placement system, what should I talk about instead? My response to that would be talk about some of the skills that you've used in different aspects of life, maybe to do in a hobby or an interest.
Yes,
that would be good to include. So, you know, if you take part in anything outside of school or college, is there something, an activity that you do regularly? What do you spend your time doing? Tell us maybe a bit about yourself there, and then what skills you're using and how they're going to be relevant. So, you know, if you don't have much work experience, then that might be useful to do as well. We've also got Megan, who says, is it important to reference any societies or clubs you wish to join? And if so, when should we mention this?
Yeah, so you kind of mention it, but it's thinking about the ABC. There's no point just putting in, yes, I want to join the swimming club or whatever it may be. You need to think about what is the benefit of that? How is that going to help you at university?
Yeah.
So talking about the ABC, the benefit, the skills that will help you, and then how can it relate to your course or your career or that independence at university. So thinking about that full-rounded thing as well.
Yeah, and I think when to mention that, I would maybe mention that in kind of a work experience / hobbies paragraph.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe in paragraph 4, but then also you could then touch on it maybe in the conclusion. So, you know, if you don't mention it elsewhere, touch on it as a sort of in your conclusion. You can maybe just say something like, you know, I'm really looking forward to continuing my interest in hockey or whatever it might be. While I'm at university, and that will maybe just finish on a note that says that we're a well-rounded student, rather than just all about the academic stuff. So that's maybe where I would mention that as well. So Lauren, a little other questions for you. Says, what are admissions tutors looking for? So these are the people who read your statement. These are the people who, when you apply and you hit that submit button on UCAS, which is a great feeling, by the way. Then these people will read it. So what are they looking for? What, you know, simple things are they looking for?
Yeah, so definitely passion for subject. Why is it you wanting to do that one? And your depth of knowledge. So not just your qualifications that you've done, but any extra knowledge or reading that you could have done, whether you've attended a guest lecture, you could have done an online module, things like that. You don't have to necessarily have that work experience that's related to the subject. It can be those extra things that you've done. So thinking about maybe you've done an EPQ, that can go into your extra knowledge and skills as well. There's lots of things that I'm sure you guys would have done out there. So don't worry too much if you've not done something specific for that work experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those two things as well, they're kind of one and the same thing, really, because if you demonstrate that you understand what you're talking about, then you're going to be coming across as passionate.
Yeah,
you know, and likewise, if you come across you're enthusiastic about what you're talking about, we can see that you know and understand it. So they're kind of the same thing, really. So passion and knowledge, they're the two key things. So let's go back to the comments then. So who have we got? We've got Ray here. Says, hi guys. Firstly, thank you for the advice. You're welcome. Welcome, Ray. Yeah. I've been struggling to cut my personal statement down to 4,000 characters as all of it seems relevant. Do you have any tips for cutting it down? Yes. Well,
I definitely struggled with this, so
did you?
I know how it's like.
Okay, tell us then. Tell us. How
I would say your template. So paragraph 1 is your introduction, what course it is that you're doing, your passion, what's your personal trigger. Paragraph 2 is your academic journey. What are your A-levels? Don't list all the different A-levels that you've done, or the B-Techs or the T-levels. Try and pick 1 or 2 modules out that really are key. That would hopefully maybe cut a few words down, or characters at least. Paragraph 3 is then about your extra knowledge, your skills, or your work experience. Try and think about a few things. It's better to have a few good examples than it is to list off all the wonderful things that you've done. It needs to have substantial things. So what is the ABC that you're going to get from that? And then your conclusion. Your conclusion doesn't need to be long, so maybe 1 or 2 lines we would suggest when we're going to schools and colleges. So don't focus too much on that, but it does need to have one because it's part of an essay structure ultimately. But hopefully that would help. Yeah,
and I think as well, I would say if you look at visually look at those 3 big paragraphs in the middle, so your academic journey, work experience and your extra knowledge, if you look at the size of those paragraphs, you know, which one is coming up like a lot bigger than the other.
Yeah.
That's maybe the one to sort of start looking at as well. I would say about maybe sentences as well.
Yeah.
You know, are you getting straight to the point in your sentences? Some of the students who I've looked at their personal statement this year, they maybe go a little bit around the houses and then eventually get to the point, just because they've got a character limit to use and you want to be as close to that as possible. But maybe, Ray, I would say to your question, how do you cut it down? Look at those sentences and maybe paragraphs where you've kind of written a little bit too much.
Yeah.
You've kind of stated the point, but then gone around the houses and just gone back to the same thing. So have you repeated yourself as well? And maybe I'd also suggest looking at the way we start our sentences as well. You know, we don't have to, you know, set the sentence up before we say our point. Just get straight into it.
Yeah.
That's one of the best pieces of advice that we've got, really, is to just keep it punchy and get straight to the point on your sentences. So that we're not just sort of left there waiting for you to say something. Just say it. Just say it. So that might help somebody.
And it is definitely common. So don't worry. It's not you're not the only one doing that. I did myself struggle with trying to keep it to the character limit. So yeah, don't worry. A lot of people out there we do see.
Yeah,
that.
Absolutely. Okay, Lauren, are you up for a bit of a game?
Yes.
Just going to do a simple true or false game. So I've got a few statements here that I prepared earlier in a certain old TV show style that I won't name. But is it true that you can write your personal statement all in one draft?
Oof, I'd say that's false. I mean, I'd like to see if someone has done that before.
You can, but...
Yeah, I mean, it probably won't be the best. Yeah, we usually recommend about 4 or 5 drafts before you actually get to that one that you do submit. So if you have done your first personal statement, get other people to read through it, then that will hopefully help you. Try and get people that don't necessarily know you, whether it's next door neighbour, things like that. That can sometimes help, because ultimately you are trying to sell yourself and talk about those positive attributes. Your parents, your family, your friends, they probably know what you've done and how amazing you are. So thinking about trying to get someone who doesn't necessarily know you, that can think, actually, yes, that does come across really well, or that bit needs more, can sometimes help with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm absolutely on board with that. Get other people to read it. Don't just keep it to yourself. Get other people to read it as well. Okay, next one. Should we avoid talking about our weaknesses?
Oh, yes. So I'd probably say that's possibly false as well. You can talk about your strengths and your weaknesses, but as long as you're backing that up, how have you overcome those weaknesses? Is it to do with your resilience, self-awareness that then shows? So try and think about that ABC method. What is it that you've gained from those weaknesses, and how have you moved on from those?
Yeah, because we don't want to be negative.
No,
this has got to be positive.
Yeah.
We've got to be really positive throughout. So, you know, if you maybe mention a struggle or some hardship or whatever it is, tell us how you've got through that. And then that will demonstrate to us that skill of resilience, like you said, perseverance, for example. So, yeah, that's great. Okay, last one then. Is it true that we should include all of our achievements? Every single one? No.
So this is what we thinking about that template. I'm sure you've done loads of things out there, so try and think about a few different things that you've done, whether it's, you know, in Nick's case is refereeing, whether he's got a part-time job and then some work experience. Those main 3 or 4 points that you can really talk about in depth to keep those word limits and character limits down, but also to make sure it's meaningful what you are talking about.
Yes.
That should make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Superb. Okay, let's go back to comments then. Let's have a little quick look. So let's go to M. So say that I have quite a bit of work experience, and I'm not sure if I should include more of that and less stuff about school to keep to the structure. So is it sort of like good to sort of keep that more? Sorry, I've got a bit lost there. If that makes sense, more likely to cover more bases. Okay, great. So basically what we're saying is we have a load of work experience. Should we include more or less stuff about school if we want to include more about our work experience? So how should we balance it?
Yeah. So I've definitely, your work experience is really important, I would say. So I try and get that in there. Depends what your aspects are from school. Is it that you've been a peer mentor? That's great. But how are you going to demonstrate that? How is that going to help you at university? So you need to think about what is more important in terms of your course. Is it relatable to your work experience that you can really talk about? What are the skills that you've gained from those? I would think about the skills that you've gained from that work experience before you then make a decision. But yeah, work experience is important.
It is, yeah.
Depending on obviously what you've done at school. So
And I think if you've got a lot of work experience, let's just not create a list of like, I've done this and done this and done this. Maybe pick the most relevant ones.
Yeah.
You know, use those as good examples first, or the ones that maybe you spent more time doing.
Yeah.
So I know for me, for example, I had quite a few little part-time jobs when I was a teenager, you know, as a pot wash and, you know, clearing glasses at a pub, whatever. So we don't want to include like loads of smaller examples. Yeah, I did this for 2 weeks and I had 3 days here. If you've got maybe ones that you've done for a bit longer, they're maybe better, because then it shows your commitment to it. And that's sort of just an extra thing to add in as well. So Finn is here. Finn says, hi guys. Hello, Finn. Hope you're well. How important is the opening sentence? Okay, and he says, my head of sixth form always mentions to try and be unique with it. How important is that open sentence?
So yeah, we do see a lot of opening sentences where they've used typical cliches, things like that. So do try and avoid. From when I was young, I've always wanted to do this. You know, that we don't want to hear that. Loads of people put that in there. So
why should we not put that?
Just because it's a bit cringe. Everyone says it, really, you know, and it's very unlikely from the age of 3 that you wanted to do that. You know, you probably didn't have a clue. So try and avoid things like that. It needs to be unique to you. Obviously, don't plagiarize, things like that. But have a think about what is a personal trigger. Why is it you're wanting to do that subject? And have a think, you know, get across what it is. Course why is it you're wanting to do, and then just go on from your passion from there. It can be quite stressful, but that's why we talk about those bullet points, and you don't have to start with paragraph 1 first. You know, you can move on about your work experience, about the extra knowledge and skills first, the academic journey.
Yeah, I do think probably the opening sentence is probably the most difficult one.
Yes.
That is the most difficult one, because you are trying to be unique. You're trying to be different. You don't want to just say, I want to study advertising because that's really boring. You also don't want to say, I've always wanted to study advertising since the day I was born, because you haven't. Like Lauren said, you were 3 once and you didn't have a clue what day it was. So we want to sort of get a good balance in between. I would say, you know, just try and maybe have a quick look at some good examples. Yeah, we do not ever want to copy and paste anything, but have a look at some good examples of your subject online, see how they've structured it, and maybe then use that as a bit of a basis, as a skeleton for then how you can fit that into your own unique way of saying the same thing. So I remember looking at a good few examples for mine, and just sort of try to focus it on my passion and where that came from. And, you know, it's got to be about you. It's got to be really true to yourself as well. So make sure that it sounds like you. That's what I would say. If you're opening sentence, we don't want to have some big cringy statement and that kind of thing at the start. What we want to do is just try and make sure it all just sounds like you. So just ask yourself that question. If you're trying to be unique and you say something a little bit differently, does that sound like you? That's probably a good place to start. And you're your own best judge of that.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's what I'd say. Okay, we've got another one. Laura Palmer here said, hi, do you have any tips on how to link paragraphs? Okay, she said, I feel like I just jump from one section to the other.
Okay, yes. Hi, Laura. Very good, relevant question there. It can be hard. Try and think about what are the common themes. So what is it, communication skills that you can talk about? Then you can move on to maybe teamwork and things. There will be a lot of stuff that is, you know, very similar in terms of when you're at school. What are the similar attributes that you're learning? What is it going to be similar at university that you may need? But still thinking about that structure, you obviously need to cover a lot of different things as well. So your work experience, you know, try and get that in as well to make sure. But yeah, have a think about the common themes that maybe running through the personal statement or the skills that you've got. That you're talking about. Yeah,
and I think you reiterate those points, don't you? If you've got, you know, if you're a really great communicator and that's part of what you want to include and it's going to be really relevant, then, you know, mention that in some stuff to do your academic journey paragraph, and then maybe touch on it again as well, just to emphasize that a little bit further down the line. So I think that'll probably be the way to link them, because you have to separate them. You know, if you're talking about the same thing in all of them, then there might as well just be one paragraph. They're going to be just sort of separate things. So don't worry about that. That's kind of the point as well. Okay, so common mistakes. We've maybe mentioned a few. Any other common mistakes people make? So first one is kind of about like exaggerating things a little bit. What about when you actually make your choices?
So have a think about you know, when you're doing your personal statement, you need to try and decide what kind of subject you're going down. It can be hard to write a personal statement when you're wanting to do business, but you're also wanting to do art. They are very different. So try and think about the common themes. What are the modules that you're studying in A-level that may link to the course that you're going on to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Avoid, we did mention at the start, but avoid talking about institution names. So don't name specific institutions, you know, try and keep it about, just say a local, you know, hospital that you did your work experience at, for example.
Yeah, good.
Other things are quotes, so try and avoid those. You know, when you're talking about quotes, you know, people don't tend to back it up or just copy and paste them in. So, you know, that's not helpful. What is that quote actually telling us is what you need to be talking about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we always say quotes from books and TV programs are great in other pieces of writing. For this one, let's try and avoid them because it's a personal statement and everyone can read the same content. So it doesn't actually make you any more unique than anyone else unless you really think that that's something you cannot leave out. So yeah, we'd recommend that as well. But yeah, there are loads of sort of mistakes, but I think the diverse options one, when you get on your 5 choices on UCAS, you know, please don't pick astrophysics, art, and like psychology, because you've got one statement to keep all of those places happy. So just bear that in mind. I think also just bear in mind that some courses will have similar content, but maybe be called something different. So like Lauren said, I think it's a great point. Look at your modules of all of your 5 courses on their websites and maybe pick a bit of a common theme out of those 5 choices so that you've got a bit of content to talk about in there as well. So we know what you're on about. Okay, let's have a look. Loads of comments coming in, guys. Thank you for your comments. This is brilliant. Some engineering specific questions here. Super curricular activities. There's a couple about international students. So let's go to Matty. What makes an international student, specifically a graduate, really stand out for a personal statement? International student. Any ideas?
Well, nothing necessarily in particular. It's mainly just, you know, what work experience have you got? What skills, attributes can you bring to the University of Lincoln or wherever you may be applying for? It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, have a different spin on it. Exactly. Obviously, you need your qualifications. You need those to make sure you've got those entry requirements as well. That's what you'll talk about in your academic journey. But yeah, what are the extra knowledge, reading that you've done, any guest lectures, any things like that, any modules that you can do online that will definitely make you stand out for anyone really that applies to.
Yeah, and I'd also add maybe, you know, a lot of international students will have another language other than English as their first language. So maybe talk to us about that. That's really interesting. That's super interesting. So, you know, talk about that maybe, that you're maybe fluent in another language. I think that maybe is a good point to start at. Different cultural experiences you've had and, you know, how something in your home country maybe is different to how we would maybe do it over in the UK. That might be really great to add in. So, you know, if you've got any unique experiences like that or sort of unique experiences that you've taken part in terms of work or just life, then if you think that's going to be relevant and useful, then I think that might be worth adding in as well. So yeah, thanks for your question, Matty. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. Just a couple of little reminders. So I think first reminder is about your kind of internal deadline. Your school or college will give you an internal deadline for your statement. So if you can, try and stick to that and speak to your teachers, make sure you know when they're going to be doing your reference. But just remember as well, the actual UCAS deadline is the 29th of January, Lauren. Is it in your diary?
Yes, it is.
Good. It's in mine as well. So 29th of January, that's when your whole application needs to be in, but please get that in as quick as you can. But make sure you've gone through that thoroughly and you're really happy with it. Make sure your tutors in sixth form and college are happy with your statement as well. I'm sure they're there to help you. But I would also point out that if you want us to have a look over your statement, please do email us. So the Education Liaison team, schools and colleges team that Lauren and I work in, are really happy to read any of your statements and give you some feedback. So our email is just educationliaison@lincoln.ac.uk. We'll just go to a final few comments, see if there's anyone else still around. There we go. We've got one more. We'll have time for one more. Here we go. Fred, here's Fred. Hi, hope all is well. Is it fine to mention things I've done in my course, 6 weeks of teaching football to year 5s and how it made me realize some of my weaknesses, but then my strengths as well as a teacher.
Yes, definitely.
Super.
So it's thinking about those weaknesses that you've done, but how have you overcome those? So that's what was really key.
Absolutely.
Don't just list off all your weaknesses and your strengths. Of course, it's what you've done to move on from those. So definitely that's really important. Please note as well that on Wednesday we have a informal visit day, and so if you do want to come along, please do. And then on Saturday, the 18th of January as well, we've got an open campus event. So there are still things to have a look at universities and things. So just put those in your diary as well.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. There's still loads of time to apply, and we would really, really love to see you here at Lincoln. We're an amazing, friendly team. Hopefully, you've got that message from us tonight. But yeah, having worked here for a number of years and studied here as well, this team is amazing. And please do get in touch if you need any support with any of your statement, anything else to do with your application. We'd honestly love to help you guys out. So I think we're a little bit out of time now. We're about there, but Lauren, I've enjoyed it.
Yes,
have you enjoyed
me too?
it?
Yes, hope you guys have.
Have you got any plans this evening?
No, I've got netball tonight.
Netball. Hope you win netball. Yeah, we're going to leave things there. Thank you so much for your time. Do get in touch with us, and we will hopefully hear from you guys soon.
Yes, thank you.